Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Monday. It's Daryl here. It's not so bright and early anymore. It's noon here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Let me say this right up front. I'm not going to make a habit out of talking about my daily conversations with people. I've done that in the last a couple videos, and it's just because the conversation stuck out so much. If there's something actually that I really think is important, or something that I could share with you guys, in my opinion, or hopefully getting you guys feedback on it, then I'll do a video. But I'm not going to make a habit out of doing, hey, I had a conversation today, and like every day doing this. But I do want to talk about the conversation I had today and what happened right after it, because it kind of links back to yesterday in the alpha, about being an alpha yesterday, and I had some more thoughts on that today. It's kind of ironic what happened today, somewhat. Okay, so I was starting off on my bike ride once again here in Connecticut, and I'm just beginning the bike ride, and I see a bike coming towards me. Another bike. I really can't make out who it is, the age or anything. It's just another mountain bike, another guy. And so I go to my side to let him pass, give him plenty of room. And the guy goes to stop to talk to me. So I usually, once I'm off, most times I don't even put my foot down the whole 10-mile ride. I just go and I just enjoy the ride and I don't stop. But this guy obviously wanted to talk to me, so I stopped. And immediately I realized that this person was mentally or intellectually challenged. He was probably, I have to say, in his mid-30s, kind of a smaller guy, kind of unkempt. When he talked, he kind of spit. The only reason I say that is because it made me a little nervous with the flu season and COVID and everything. So I kind of kept my mask. I wear a mask on my ride, so I kind of kept my mask up because I was a little nervous about that, about catching COVID or anything like that. But like I said, it was obvious right from the start that he was kind of intellectually challenged. And so I stopped, and he started asking me about my bike. Hey, what kind of bike? He'd obviously seen me around town. And he wanted to know what kind of bike I had and how much it cost and where I got it. And right off the bat, I got the feeling that, this guy's just going to keep on talking, and I started to feel a little impatient, I gotta, I gotta ride away from this guy. And all of a sudden, I remembered yesterday's video, how I was talking about how I hate to be ignored. Like when somebody's talking to me and you could tell, they just ignore you, and all of a sudden that popped in my head. And I thought about it. All of a sudden, I thought to myself, this guy, I don't know what his average day is like. Like I said, he was kind of unkempt. It didn't look like he had a lot of money. I'm guessing he probably had a rough day. He was a small guy. It was probably a hand-down bike. It was an old ratty bike, really. And I suddenly thought to myself, you know what? I could spare 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it takes, to talk to this guy, to get a feel, listen to him. And that's what it pretty much was. I wouldn't even really call it a conversation. So he started telling me, he started talking about how he saw me going fast down the road, and then he said how he started talking about, and this was just like nonstop talking. So I just decided to listen to him, because like I said, all of a sudden I remembered the day before how I was complaining about one thing that really bothers me is when, so I didn't want to patronize him, but I thought, look, you have the time. Maybe I could actually learn something from this guy. Maybe I could actually make this something that I remember. I could take away something from this, instead of just ignoring this guy like I had the urge to do. And then, so he started talking to me. It was kind of hard to understand him, and I was trying to dodge the spittle. I'm not saying that to be funny or anything. And one thing he did say, like he went through like 2 or 3 or 4 different stories about people on bikes and his brother and stuff like that. But then he started talking about how he fell himself, how he was riding a scooter, like an electric scooter, and how the police came. And and he's all serious when he's talking, and you could tell, he's telling the truth. And he says how the police arrested him for being under the influence. He was charged. He was given a ticket for being under the influence, and he was trying to explain to me that he had his medication or something like that, and and the police thought he was under the influence. And I looking at this guy, I could tell, he does, being a past addict and alcoholic myself, I just got the feeling that this guy was wronged. I'm guessing that the police probably made a misjudgment here, because he's mentally handicapped and he's not, the way he was talking and everything. I could see if you didn't really want to pay attention to him, you could think that he was under the influence, and that was interesting, So after about 20 minutes, I decided that I'm gonna have to, in a kind way, kind of break away, So I did, and I rode away. I said, I really got to go. I'm sorry, but it was nice meeting you. Be careful out there, and I rode away. And it's interesting. Yesterday, I talked about people ignoring me, and it made me think today. Before I just wrote this guy off, I just rode away from him. Maybe could I spare? Is my day really that busy that I can't spare 10 or 15 minutes to not just to patronize, to pretend like I'm listening to this guy, but to actually listen to him, and just listen to what he has to say and just give him a few minutes of my time. And I actually, it made my day better today. It really did, and it really made me think about some of the story he told me about the police and being arrested. I don't know what happened, but it was an interesting story. I don't know what happened, but it seemed like it really bothered him. It seemed like a true story. All right after that, I'm going up the street, and a school bus, there's a school bus yard where the buses park, and I'm going past it, and there's a girl driving a bus, a young lady, and I think she's got a few kids on the bus, and I slow down to let her pull out. And there's other cars coming, so I keep waiting, and I'm kind of laughing. I'm like, I pull over and I stop, so she, I'm one less person she has to worry about, so she can pull out into traffic. And if eventually she just tells me go ahead. So I go past her, and right on the other side of her, I didn't realize there was a truck pulling out of a work truck pulling out of a plumbing supply place. And he had been waiting too on the other side of this bus, and I didn't realize that. So I went in front of him. I passed in front of him, and as I'm going by, I waved to him. Thank you for letting me pass in front of you, which is something I usually do whenever a car stops for me, even if it's at a stop sign. I wave, because I really appreciate them, not running me over. I really go out of my way to thank people when they're courteous to me. And as I'm waving to him, I actually see him flip me off, because apparently he was in a rush and he didn't like waiting for me. And this is the part that I really thought about. I didn't get angry in the least. Actually, I thought it was a little, I gotta say, I wasn't laughing at it, but it was a little humorous that I thought, I thought to wave to him, and and he was flipping. I don't know if he thought I saw him flipping me off. I don't know if that made him even angrier. The fact that I just waved to him and I didn't. Maybe he doesn't think I saw him, and I felt kind of sad for him. That his day is so rushed and he's in such a negative frame of mind. That just because he had to wait I'd say not more than 10 seconds for me in the school bus to clear out of his path so he could pull out, that he would actually flip somebody off. I actually felt bad, how negative his day must be. And I thought about the alpha thing that I said yesterday about being an alpha. And, and I don't think that would involve confronting this guy or flipping him back off or anything. If anything, I feel sorry for this guy. I really don't want to become part of his world, his negativity. I don't want to soak in any of his negativity, and I thought about that. Does being an alpha, does that mean that I have to go out of my way to assert my dominance? Or no, not at all. I think it's quite the opposite. If you're confident, you don't need to do things like that. I started thinking too about I used to work at, I'm not very good. I don't know if I would consider myself an alpha. I've heard, there's what's called a sigma, and that's kind of like the lone wolf version of the alpha. There's alpha, beta, sigma, omega is kind of like your outcast. I guess you'd call the guy in the basement, just working on the computer, not very many friends, just kind of like the way opposite of an alpha. The sigma being kind of like a lone wolf version that doesn't even adhere to the whole hierarchy. It's kind of like a lone wolf alpha. That's what I consider myself. And I started thinking about times in the past when I had to lead people. I worked for an architectural company. I graduated 2 times out of 2 technical schools, the same technical schools, but 2 times, once for mechanical drafting, once for architectural drafting. And about 15 years ago, I actually worked in an engineer's office. And I had 2 draftsmen underneath me. I had to delegate work to them. And looking back, I wasn't very good at it. Back then, I told myself, I would get frustrated and I would end up doing the work myself instead of doing what I was supposed to do and delegating the work to them, being their boss, being their leader. In the whole talking, as we're talking about alphas right now. And I wasn't very good at it. And I told myself back then that it was because I was impatient, that I thought I could, if you want something done right, do it yourself, But that's not really why, now that I look back in hindsight, the real reason is because I was scared, because I didn't have the self-confidence to delegate work to other people. That's the time I told myself it was because, if you want something done, do it yourself. But that's not really why. Now that I can look back in hindsight, it's because I really didn't have the self-confidence to be a leader, to be in charge, to be that alpha or whatever you want to call it in the office. Now I might be a little better at it as I'm working on these things. Not because I want to be a leader or anything, but just because I think it might make me more comfortable, more happy, more well-adjusted in my life. Why not strive to be a better person? Those are some thoughts I had today. All right, I'll be back later with another video. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know what you think. Let me know if you've had similar experiences, what you think about alphas, omegas, betas, and the whole thing. I'll be back later with another video. You guys have a good Monday.